day, everybody. It is Klaxon here, and if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe for more RWBY videos. And this video is brought to you by my patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube membership members, so thanks to them for supporting the channel. Today we will be discussing the Gift of the Moon from the RWBY fairy tale book. This one is a little weird compared to the other ones. Like, it kind of felt a little lackluster, to be honest, but I'm still going to sort of, analyze it, maybe explain why it was included. I'm gonna justify this story, basically, in my interpretation of it, and why I think it's, valuable to have included, because on first glance, I remember Arnold and I were sort of, reading through the fairy tale book, and this was one of the last ones, and we were like, oh, okay. It was just sort of like that, But I hope that you guys will comment down below with your thoughts after I sort of go through everything, and, we'll have a good time. I'll do my best. So this story is set in a time before the moon was created, so that's sort of interesting. The sun basically lights up the sky for half of the day, and then the other half of the day is just, pitch black darkness, right? And so they try to, distract the sun with compliments to get the sun to stay longer so they can have sunlight all day, and this, again, personifies the sun very similar to how the sun is in The Man That Stared at the Sun. We know that the sun has, a really big ego in that one, and he's like, people don't look at me enough, people don't do this, people don't do that, right? And so I sort of wonder, that personification of the sun is very consistent, where he, loves to be showered in compliments and loves to, get praised for his work and all that stuff. It's kind of funny. And so they basically, tell the sun to stay in one place, but then the area below has unending day, while for everyone else it's nighttime, so that's not gonna work. And so that actually happens in The Man That Stares at the Sun. So I wonder if, canonically, right, this fairy tale, the moon thing starts, The Man That Stares at the Sun happened, and then this story keeps going, because there are a couple things they suggest, oh, stay in one place. What about if you go really fast? There's all that sort of stuff, and so the staying in one place, that could have happened at the same time that The Man That Stared at the Sun was supposed to happen. This story didn't happen, guys. I don't think that this is an actual, real fairy tale that happened, but in terms of, the fairy tale canon of it all, that could have been an element that was taken, from The Man That Stared at the Sun, or sort of, vice versa, if that makes sense. There are a couple fairy tales that include characters from other fairy tales, and I know that's sort of a weird thing to say, but you guys understand what I mean. And so it's just the person writing that, they didn't, there was never not a moon, that's basically what I'm trying to say. It's they did not, the sun did not crash into the earth, and they did not hoist the sun back up into the sky and all that stuff. That didn't happen. This fairy tale is just a fairy tale, right? But what I am saying is it would be sort of interesting if there was a sort of the sun universe, you know what I mean? Oh my god, how would we even say that? The SCU. Wait, SCU. Yes, the SCU. It's the Sun Cinematic Universe of all these fairy tales about the sun. Anyway, then they suggest that the sun moves a little bit faster, and so the sun moves so fast that it's daytime everywhere, which is great until he burns out and crashes into the earth. And we already talked about this being an ironwood metaphor, basically, the sun being a metaphor for ironwood, and I can see that, but I also think, Ironwood goes slow, people aren't happy, then he goes too fast, people aren't happy, he focuses on one single thing, the sun staying in one spot, that's not good enough either, so I could see this as an ironwood metaphor in a strange way. I'm sure it could apply to other characters. I don't think that this was specifically all written with ironwood in mind, especially because, ironwood is just 1 or 2 or 3 seasons of RWBY, out of the whole of RWBY, but there could be more fairy tale books too, so, the sun basically falls into the earth because it's so burnt out. And I kind of wonder if there's an art metaphor there too, just because as a sort of meta thing, you hear about burnout, right? When someone works too hard without a break or goes too fast and they sort of crash, right? So I wonder if there's sort of a burnout metaphor going on here, where it could be like an artist, you know what I mean? And all that sort of stuff. Burning out and crashing into the earth. The writer's trying to tell us something, blink twice if you need help, Myers, it's okay. But yeah, the sun basically leaks out stars, which go into the night sky, which is nice. And the sun is now dimmer and becomes a moon. So people basically, the sun turns into the moon, and then people build a replacement sun and they hoist it into the sky. And so the fake sun is actually better than the real sun, and that's not making the moon feel very nice. And so people say that the moon is better, though, because now we can look at him, and that was the whole thing. The sun, loved compliments and all that stuff, loved being praised. And so the people are like, we'll always remember that sun is fake and all that stuff. You're so pretty now that we can look at you. The people are flattering the moon, the former sun, and all that stuff. And now the sun hoisted into the sky is fake. fake. And so the sun is not personified. Like when the fake sun is into the air, I guess you could say, it's not personified anymore, which does sort of give that feeling that it's more of an object compared to like a god, if that makes sense, or something given by the gods. Because the sun, it says, was given by the gods. And now the broken sun, as in the moon, right, never stops mooning over its golden days when it was alone in the sky and the world had basked in its warmth, and that's why we call it the moon. So like that's a fairy tale. And so Osmond goes on to say that basically the people caused the problem in the first place, right? But equally, people were the solution, right? You know, the people caused the sun to fall out, but they, you know, worked together, they found a solution, and now everything's working better than before. And so they took a gift, you know, from the god of light and improved it with their own human ingenuity. And so that's what Osmond talks about. And so I think that that message is really nice. But like I said, when Arnold and I were reading it, we were like, oh, okay, like, we didn't really get it, especially compared to some of the other stories, which are, you know, more impactful. But I think that there's something larger going on. I think there's a metaphor for the world at large here, right? And obviously this was mentioned a little bit, like, oh, it shows that humanity can unite and, like, we can achieve a common goal together. Woo! Like, everyone has the same problem. The days aren't long enough, so they all work together to fix it. And it may be unrealistic, but we can sort of imagine, like, what if everyone truly came together to solve the problem, like to solve the problem of Salem, right? Like what if all the kingdoms would stop fighting amongst each other and sort of focus their efforts on a common goal, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, like for now. Like, you know what I mean? And so I sort of feel like that the moon metaphor is also a metaphor for what humanity could do if they were all unified in fighting Salem. And that's partially why I think they wanted the CCT tower to go up, so they could warn everyone, but everyone could also be united in this goal and all that stuff. But, you know, like, I don't know, I'm just hoping, like, I know this is so weird, I'm just hoping that if aliens attacked Earth, you guys, like, I'm hoping that all the countries would, like, unite together to fight against them, like, no matter what differences the countries are having, like, right now or whatever, you know, like, I'm hoping that we would all unite to fight against the aliens. It's sort of the same thing. And so humanity can do anything if they work together, and that's why it's so important for Salem to divide everyone, right? If humanity can't overcome their differences and work together, she will win. I also think that there's a message in rebuilding, like rebuilding what has been destroyed to be better. And maybe that's what will happen at the end of the show. Maybe all the kingdoms will fall. I mean, Mistral's okay, but like maybe like the kingdoms, like as an institution, would fall. Because here's the thing about, or I guess not the kingdom. I'm sort of more thinking about the school. You know what I mean? But maybe the kingdoms will fall. Maybe the schools have fallen, right? But at the very end of the show, maybe they will have one kingdom for one people, maybe spanning across the entire continent. I don't know how that's gonna work with Atlas, but maybe they'll just like leave Atlas alone. Atlas will be like Antarctica, no one's living there, you know what I mean? Like maybe the schools have fallen, maybe the kingdoms have fallen, but they will be rebuilt to be better than Ozpin made them. All the kingdoms, all the schools are Ozpin's creation, and so if they fall, you know, maybe it's like Team Ruby and everyone else who build something better. One unified kingdom, like maybe still multiple academies, because you can't have everyone going to one school, but you know what I mean? Like everyone can make something better out of what Ozpin had left them, right? Making a better world out of what was left to you by the previous generation and stuff. Like, I think that that's really, really nice. And I guess I do mean more the schools than the kingdoms. Like, I don't think that Mistral's gonna fall at this point, because it's fine, but like the schools as an institution, especially, like when you think about it, you know, Beacon has fallen, that stuff with Lionheart happened, which is not very good for that school, right? Like nobody knows that except for us, but Lionheart was basically a traitor and stuff, right? And so that's what I'm sort of imagining, like, and the kingdoms too, like what if all the kingdoms could be one kingdom, and there's no longer, you know, all of this, like all this kingdoms at war nonsense, and it doesn't even need to be like everyone turns into a melting pot, you know what I mean? And everyone sort of mixes their cultures together. It's more of like a salad, you know what I mean? Like it's one connected meal, but you can see all the parts of it, right? Like in all of those parts are the people from Mistral and Atlas and their culture and their values. No one gives up their culture, but they just unite as like one kingdom. And maybe they call that kingdom something, I don't know, like maybe they call that kingdom something of like, you know, great importance, if that makes sense. They have this great name for this one unified kingdom. I don't know what they would call it, but you guys understand what I'm saying. A lot of people really wanted like silver-eyed warriors come from the moon type secret in this story, and originally that's what I hoped for. Like a lot of people were like, oh my god, it's the gift from the moon, it's the silver eyes. It wasn't. But I still think that this story, even though it didn't deliver on that aspect, right, it still fits in with the general message of RWBY and what Ozpin wants the world to become and all that stuff. So I still think that it was really, really nice. But yeah, that is all from me. I hope that you guys enjoyed this analysis, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.